Back, everyone. We're gonna do a Cars passage in music. I would prefer not to read the titles by Jack Weston. However, uh, yeah. Uh, However, I do read the titles of the passage because that's what you get in the real exam scenario. But yeah, let's go through this. Why do we hate modern classical music? By Alex Ross. A full century after Arnold Schoenberg and his students Alban Berg and Anton Webern unleashed their harsh chords on the world, many concertgoers still find modern classical music distasteful. Last season at the New York Philharmonic, several dozen people walked out of a performance of Berg's three pieces for orchestra. About the same number exited Carnegie Hall before the Vienna Philharmonic struck up Schoenberg's Variations for Orchestra. For decades, critics, historians, and even neuroscientists have been pondering the question of why so-called modern music seems to perplex the average listener. After all, adventurous artists in other fields have met with a very different reception. The highest priced painting in history is Jackson Pollock's swirlingly abstract number 5, 1948, which sold in 2006 for $140 million. Tycoons and emirs coveted avant-garde architects. James Joyce's Ulysses inspires worldwide drinking parties every 16 June. Explanations for the abiding resistance to musical modernism have proliferated. Their sheer number suggests that none quite holds the key. One theory holds that a preference for simple tonality is wired into the human brain. Perhaps we just like the sound of music with distinct notes and pleasant harmonies more than we like complex sounds that are harsh to the ear. But attempts to test this proposition have produced ambiguous results. For example, a couple of studies suggest that infants prefer the simple tones of consonant chords to dissonant ones. Yet infants hear tonal music almost from the moment of birth, and so have been conditioned to accept it as natural. There is also a sociological explanation. Because concert audiences are essentially trapped in their seats for a set period, they tend to reject unfamiliar work more readily than do gallery visitors, who can move about freely, confronting strange images at their own pace. Yet, if the style of presentation conditioned the response, one would expect that dance, theater, and movie audiences would show the same revulsion toward novel ideas. We might also note that filmmakers have made lavish use of the same dissonant modern classical music that concertgoers have found so alienating. Stanley Kubrick's 2001 A Space Odyssey, with its hallucinatory soundtrack, mesmerized millions in the late 1960s. Martin Scorsese's Shutter Island, which deploys music by modern classical composers associated with Berg and Schoenberg, was a recent box office hit. If the human ear were instinctively hostile to dissonance, these and 1,000 other Hollywood productions would have failed. All music is an acquired taste. No music is everywhere beloved. Certainly, some genres are more popular than others, but individual tastes change dramatically. Modern classical music can expand its audience by integrating ideas from other repertory to the exclusion of 20th century music, both classical and pop. Then, once I acknowledged the force of dissonance, I went from Schoenberg to Messiaen to Xenakis, and following the path of noise, moved on to the post punk sound of Sonic Youth. Some of my contemporaries found classical music by proceeding in the opposite direction. They began not with Mozart, but with Steve Reich or Arvo Part. To build the audience of the future, classical institutions should make more of unexpected bridges between genres. What must fall away is the notion of classical music as a reliable conduit for simple beauty, a kind of spa treatment for tired souls. Such an attitude undercuts not only 20th century composers but also the classics that perspective purports to cherish. Imagine if classical music was instead played with Sonic Youth, or Steve Reich, or even Madonna, or various hip hop artists. Our interest in modern classical music and in all music would be made richer. The passage author's central concern appears to be improve how modern classical music sounds, expand modern classical music's appeal, understand why modern classical music is disliked, distinguish classical music from other art forms. So we can eliminate this because that's not true. Expand modern classical music's appeal. It is about expansion, but it's the same as improving how modern classical music sounds. So this is more like the author is even saying, why do we hate modern classical music? So he wants to understand why modern classical music is disliked. But he's trying to explain why it's disliked. He gives a sociological explanation, and yeah, for now. The discussion comparing the freedom of movement that modern classical music concert audiences and art gallery visitors have includes the assumption that audiences are not more receptive to something they have to encounter. Dance theater and movies are less innovative than classical music. Classical music concerts usually go on for longer than art gallery shows. Theater audiences are free to move around the theater when they want to. So, firstly, let's go to where we saw that in the passage. Yes. Because concert audiences are essentially trapped in their seats for a set period, they tend to reject unfamiliar work more readily than do gallery visitors. So they reject unfamiliar work. Because the explanation is that gallery visitors can move about freely, confronting strange images at their own. Yet, so this is like another contradiction. Yet, if the style of presentation conditioned the response, one would expect that dance, theater, and movie audiences would show the same revulsion towards novel ideas. And he goes on to explain how movies were hit pieces. So the author kind of contradicts himself as well. So the discussion comparing the freedom of movement that modern classical music concert audiences and art gallery visitors have includes the assumption that audiences are not more receptive to something they have to encounter. Dance, theater, and movies are less innovative. No, this is not about this. Classical music concerts usually go on for longer than art gallery shows. It's not about the duration. Theater audiences are free to move around the theater when they want to. So that's not the implication. So it's the first one. Audiences are not more receptive to something they have to encounter. Which of the following, if assumed to be true, would provide the best evidence to support the author's conclusion about modern classical music? So if any of these are true, which of them would provide the best evidence to support the author's conclusion about? So the conclusion is that classical music as a reliable conduit for simple beauty, it could be improved, right? It could be so our interest in modern classical music and in all music would be made richer. So when a song seems to use multiple genres, audiences appear to enjoy the song more. Classical music composition requires a deep understanding of the history of music. Rock music concerts featuring multiple bands attract larger audiences than solo shows. Some of the most popular music figures today are modern classical music composers. So we want to see if any of these options, if they are true, which of them would provide the best evidence for the conclusion. So again, when a song seems to use multiple genres, audiences appear to enjoy the song more. This is a good one. Classical music composition requires a deep understanding of the history of music. Yeah, we don't care about that. It's not talked about in the passage. Rock music concerts featuring multiple bands attract. It's not about multiple bands attracting larger audiences. I mean, yes, it does say, imagine if classical music was instead played with sonic youth, or even without. It's not an amalgamation of all these artists together, so we can eliminate C as well. Some of the most popular musical figures today are modern classical music composers. Yeah, it's not about that, so it's more about the first one. With which of the following general statements would the author most likely agree? We do not let others change who you really are. The older something is, the less stylish it is. Kind of, this could be related. Be willing to change to be appreciated. Music should be challenging to listen to. I like C more since he wants to focus on improving, changing modern classical music. So the older something is, the less stylish it is. It's kind of too harsh. Man, I don't know. We can flag it. It's more about the appreciation of modern classical music and less about stylishness. The ideas discussed in the passage would likely be most useful to modern classical music scholars, opponents, composers, and audiences. I would say it's more for the composers in order to be willing to accept to make it played by like a more modern singers or artists. The studies that test the theory that human brains are instinctively attracted to simple music, paragraph 3, are vulnerable to which of the following criticisms? They do not account for a potentially... Okay, so first let's read the section of the passage. So the studies that test the theory of human brains are that human brains are instinctively attracted to simple music are vulnerable to which of the following criticisms. So we want the vulnerability of the human brain's being instinctively attracted to simple music. Explanations for abiding resistance to musical modernism have proliferated. The sheer number suggests that non-quiet holds the key. One theory holds that the preference for simple tonality is wired into the human brain. Perhaps we just like the sound of music with distinct notes and pleasant harmonies more than we like complex sounds that are harsh to the ear. But attempts to test this precision have produced ambiguous results. For example, a couple of studies suggest that infants prefer the simple tones of consonants to distant ones, yet infants hear tonal music almost from the moment of birth and so have been conditioned as natural. So it's vulnerable to which of the following criticism? They do not account for a potentially biasing factor. That's a good one. They unjustifiably dismiss a valid counter-argument. No. They do not consider that our other arts produce different results. They unjustifiably assume that babies differ from adults. I like the first one more than it's more about the biasing factor. Suppose that a new piece of modern classical music involves an orchestra that plays in the middle of a room, while the audience is invited to walk around the orchestra and get as close to or far away from the musician as they want to. Suppose also that this concert is extremely successful. How does this affect the opinions expressed in the passage? It challenges the idea that we do not naturally love certain kinds of music. It supports the idea that concert audiences may dislike sitting during performances. It supports the passage author's claims about modern classical music. It does not affect the claims mentioned in the passage. So after that, the author, you have to see the whole picture. The author denies the fact that because the audience is sitting in the room, so then he proceeds to give examples of movies that are hit pieces. So also he says, if the human ear were instinctively hostile to dissonance, these and 1,000 other Hollywood productions would have failed. So his end point is that all music is an acquired taste. No music is ever beloved. That's like the main idea of the passage. So some genres are more popular than others, but individual tastes change dramatically. So suppose also that this concert is extremely successful. So he mentions that this concert is successful, and how does this affect the opinions expressed in the passage? It should either support it or challenge it. So challenge that we do not naturally love certain kinds of music. No, I don't like that. Supports the idea that concert audiences may dislike sitting during performances. Yeah, but the big picture is that I mean, because it's successful extremely, it supports the passage author's claims about modern classical music. It supports the passage author's claims about modern classical music. It does not affect the claims mentioned in the passage. Yeah, between B and D, I would choose B still. Yeah. Because it is mentioned in the passage and we don't want to deny that. They do not account for a potentially biasing factor. That is the correct answer. I would say it's for composers. Which of the following genres would the author most likely agree? Be willing to change to be appreciated. With which of the following, if assumed to be true, would provide the best evidence to support the author's conclusion about classical music? The discussion, modern classical music and art have, including the assumption that audiences are not more receptive to something they have to encounter. The passage's central concern. Oh, so we could go with the second one because yeah, this is a tricky one. Let's see. So the main idea, the question wants us to identify most in line with main idea. The main idea is that modern classical music can appeal to audiences by reaching out to other genres. Yeah, that could be the main idea. So modern classical music can appeal to audiences by reaching out to other genres. That's the main idea of this, which is like towards the end, right? So the author is concerned with how modern classical music can appeal to more people. Expand modern classical music's appeal. However, for the majority of the passage, the author is trying to explain why modern classical music is disliked. So, we might find this answer choice appealing because the author discusses why modern classical music might be disliked. Paragraph 1 states that many people still find modern classical music distasteful. Paragraph 2 says that critics, historians, and neuroscientists have been trying to determine why this is. Paragraph 3 gives explanations for the resistance to modern classical music. Paragraph 4 also gives explanation for resistance. However, this answer is incorrect for two reasons. First, the author does not give a definitive answer to why modern classical music is disliked. That is actually true. They give theories in paragraphs 3 and 4, but they also give a counter argument for each theory. They describe why they are likely wrong. The author even says in paragraph 3 that the sheer number of theories suggests that none quite holds the key. Second, paragraphs 1 to 4 give background information on modern classical music. However, in paragraphs 5 to 8, the author gives their opinion. They argue that people should connect modern classical music with other genres. They insist that mixing modern classical music with other music would make it richer. These paragraphs give us the author's opinion and thus their purpose for writing the passage. The author provides us with information about modern classical music to tell us what we should and must do. The author does not provide an equally strong opinion regarding why people dislike modern classical music, so it is not the author's central concern. Because of this, answer C is worse than D. C is worse than B. I think that's what he's trying to say. Yeah. For B, the answer choice is correct because it is in line with the author's main idea. The main idea is that modern classical music can appeal to audiences by reaching out to other genres. The author is, so be careful. We want to not confuse the point of view of the author with whatever factual information or statistical information that the author is giving. So we want to look out for the author's opinions. So for example, the last paragraph shows that, right? To build the audience of the future, classical institutions should make more of unexpected bridges between genres. This is kind of the main idea, right? He's saying that out of his own will. So you have to look for the ideas of the author. They want to expand the appeal. The author is concerned with how modern classical music can appeal to more people. They might not think that this answer is correct because the first half of the passage deals with why modern classical music is not liked. However, we should see that the author first discusses how modern classical music is disliked to introduce their central concern. So if whatever the author is cooking, like all those preparations and everything, should not confuse you to not see the central concern, central message, the main idea. So the main idea is the food, the plate that the author serves you, and you want to be able to look at that uh, plate and distinguish it from whatever preparation that was behind it. After describing the possible explanations for why people dislike modern classical music, the author notes that it has been successfully used in film in paragraph 5. They discuss how people's music tastes can change in paragraph 6. In paragraph 7, they start using first person and give a call to action. They argue that people should make more of unexpected bridges between genres. In paragraph 8, they say we must discard current notions and that mixing modern classical music with other music would make it richer. These paragraphs give us the author's opinion and thus their central concern. The author provides us with information about modern classical music to tell us in these paragraphs what they think we should and must do. Thus, the author's purpose in writing the passage is to tell us that modern classical music can appeal to audiences by reaching out to other genres. They argue that we can expand the appeal by doing this. Because of this, this answer choice is correct. It's the best one. Okay, I'm convinced. For the last one, I just want to the answer is incorrect. The one that does not support any claims in the passage. The author suggests that modern classical music is less appreciated than other modernist art because concert audiences are essentially trapped in their seats for a set period. If a modern classical music piece is successful when it lets the audience move, it shows that being trapped in a seat was likely why audiences did not like the music. More freedom of movement makes modern classical music successful. Thus, it suggests that the problem really was being trapped in one seat. Thus, it strengthens the statement from the passage, so it does affect the claims mentioned in the passage. This answer choice contradicts the passage information. Because of this, we can eliminate D. Okay, cool. Yeah, I think we did relatively well, 6 out of 7. But yeah, it's a lesson to have from this passage, to just watch out for the central idea, see what the author is cooking, and at the end cool. Cool. I think there were some words like conduit. I'll just go over this passage to see what words were unfamiliar to me. Bear with me here. Okay, I have to do something also quickly on the side, so I'll just finish the recording here, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers, bye bye.